we're all very confused. We all were very confused about how much rent as a tenant you should or may have to pay your landlord in a commercial premises. Okay, so you're renting a shop or you're renting commercial premises in an office environment or wherever it is. How much can I get a reduction from my landlord for the rent I ordinarily would pay? It has been confusing because there's been a whole lot of proposals floating around the place, and each state must legislate singularly their own legislation. So if you're in New South Wales, it could be different in Queensland, it could be different to Victoria. So recently, the federal government, that's the Morrison government, announced a code of conduct which can be arbitrated and or mediated into. In other words, if you don't follow this code of conduct, you can get somebody to arbitrate or mediate around the agreement that you finally reach with your landlord if you're a tenant, or with your tenant if you're a landlord. The government is not suggesting at any stage that the landlord should cop it in the neck and not receive the rent they're otherwise entitled to. What they are suggesting is that the rents that the landlord doesn't receive during the next 6 months get deferred within the lease for a further period. In other words, the landlord will agree to spread the payments out over a longer period of time during the deferral period. So I might be the landlord, you're my tenant, I might defer your payments for 6 months, 100% of your payments, and then I'll add, in 6 months' time, I'll take those payments and I'll spread them out over the balance of the lease and get you to pay me back over time. So it sort of becomes like a debt. What amount you actually get deferred depends on a number of things. And this is, again, as I said before, it's in a code of conduct. This is a suggested way we conduct ourselves. It's a code, and a code which the government would hope that all commercial tenancies, that's the landlord and the tenant, should adopt. I've got to add to you that each of the states will probably turn this into law. So you may as well start having your conversations with your landlord or with your tenant straight away. There are a number of things that you need to have in existence before you qualify to come under this code of conduct. One of those is, for example, that your annual turnover, you the tenant, is less than 50 million. Another one that you need to demonstrate with your landlord in terms of coming within the code of conduct is that your revenues are down. In other words, it's not fair if your revenues are up and you're saying to your landlord, I can't afford to pay your rent. That's a rort. Another one is that you have registered for the $1,500 JobKeeper per fortnight program. You are registering and getting the JobKeeper payments to your business for your staff. I urge you to go to the mentor.com.au/updates page and have a look at this, have a look at our summary. If you're a landlord and or you're a tenant, make sure you qualify, meet up and try and do a deal. Generally speaking, what's going to happen if you're the tenant and if your revenues are down by 30%, generally speaking, the code of conduct would result in you paying 30% less in rent. End of story. That's a general rule. It might be, though, at 30% revenue down, your profits are zero. In fact, you might be running at a loss. In which case, you've got to talk to your landlord and say, listen, I can't afford to keep paying the rent even at a 30% discount if I'm losing money. Because if you're losing money, eventually you go bankrupt. Last thing the landlord wants is for you to go bankrupt, because then he won't get any money ever again. He's lost a tenant and then he has to go and find another tenant, which is not an easy thing to do at the moment. So you've got to be sensible, be practical, and go to our website, mentor.com.au/updates. Have a look at our summary of the conditions and or the way to conduct your negotiations, whether you're landlord or tenant, and get cracking, get started on this, and so you can put that one aside. So this is really important. It will be legislated by the various states. Keep paying your rent, send it to your landlord, and do a deal.